a kind of textile that many of us have in our homes as well as museums. They're part of our everyday life. Many of us have grandparents and great-grandmothers who made quilts. So it's not uncommon for people to have quilts in their houses which need to be stored properly. Because of their size, they need to be stored relatively flat, although they have to be folded somewhat in order to fit into a box. The best type of place to store a quilt is either in a large chest or a box that should be acid-free, non-wood. If you do have to use a wood container, it's best to line it with muslin or tissue paper. The quilt we're looking at today is a quilt that's made from flour sacks, and it's a relatively contemporary quilt. The important thing when you're working with storing or conserving textiles is to have a clean working space. Wash your hands first. Wear white gloves because the oil on people's hands transfers onto a textile. And if you kept touching a textile over and over again with your oily hands, you'd leave a deposit on the textile, which may not be evident or that obvious right away, but over time those stains will come out. So it's important to have a nice clean workspace and work patiently and with care. Decide upon the size of container or box that the quilt is going to go in, and then spreading the quilt out, keeping it as flat as possible. You want to take acid-free tissue paper and crunch it up into sausages so that where there are large creases, the tissue paper will help support that. In storing a textile over time, you don't want heavy creases to be formed because over time, those creases will cause the fabric to split. You can make a nice, sort of concise, tight roll and tuck it inside, giving the quilt some support. Then we'll fold the textile towards us. You're now looking at the back of the quilt, which is a pink lining. We're going to pad out another one of these creases. And we'll fold the quilt over with the tissue supporting this final crease. Make sure the quilt is as smooth as possible. And in order to fit it in the box, we'll have to fold it over again. Once again, we'll add some tissue in the middle to try and give it some more support. Now the quilt's ready to go in the box. You want to prepare the box with a lining of either tissue or pre-washed muslin. Using muslin or large pieces of tissue is also very helpful because if they're large enough and they come out over the edges of the box, then you can use that to lift the textile out. Then using two hands, try to support the textile as well as you can. Place it in the box. Put more sheets of tissue over the top. And it's ready for storage. This is one method of storing textiles. You can see this is a very nice package. You can also put more tissue around the edges so that it won't slide when it's in the box. There are other methods to store textiles. What you want to consider is the size, the condition. specifications of the textiles. Some textiles should be rolled. Others, like garments, can be stored hanging with the proper support. And textiles such as quilts and coverlets are traditionally folded in this manner and padded out and put into boxes or storage containers. So consider all those qualifications for storing your textile. You want to have it a relatively stable humidity and stable temperature and low light, and use inert and acid-free materials. And your textiles will last a lot longer.